Today we're going to be discussing a concept that's kind of referred to a lot, but not really explained, which is the idea of metagame matchups in Edison format. I kind of want to preface this by saying that I think one of the things I like about Edison is that matchups don't really feel that important compared to other formats. So just keep in mind in this video when I'm talking about this deck's good against that deck or that deck's bad against that deck, or even when I'm just talking about that in general, I mean like that deck wins 55% of the time or loses 55% of the time. I don't really mean to imply that matchups are at all worse than that. I think that's about as bad as it gets in Edison, in terms of the RPS nature of the meta. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before I got into it. But yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting topic. I'm just going to be going over the top meta decks, or at least most of them, that I referred to in my most recent metagame discussion video. And the reason I say most of them is because I'm going to be excluding these two, which are Dragon Turbo and Lightsworn. The main reason I'm not going to talk about these, or at least I'm going to not talk about them much, if at all, is because they're just super high ceiling, turbo style decks, and whether they win or lose is more dependent on themselves really than anything else, in any given situation. So I'm not saying that matchups don't matter for these decks, but I think they hardly matter. If you see your ceiling hand in Lightsworn or Dragon Turbo, you're just gonna win, and if you brick, you're just gonna lose, and that's just kind of how it is. So that's the way I view these decks. Maybe it's overly simplistic, but I'm gonna kind of omit them from the discussion a bit because of that reason. Before we start, let me just say that the points I'm going to be discussing in this video aren't based on actual hard data. I don't know, maybe there's some big spreadsheet out of there, every tournament match ever played and every matchup and who won. I don't know if that exists out there, but if it does, I'm not going through all of it, and also I'm pretty sure it doesn't, so we're just going to be talking about my theoretical expectations. And to be completely honest, this was a lot easier when I thought of it in my head, because a lot of these a lot trickier than they really seem on the surface in terms of thinking out what would have the advantage. Kind of sort of goes to prove my point earlier about how matchups in Edison aren't super one-sided or clear-cut in general, but I made this template and I've got two different sets of circles. So the stuff in the smaller circles is the stuff maybe I'm a little less sure about. That being said, with Blackwings, I'm a lot more sure about most of these than maybe the other matchups. So Blackwings are pretty strong against, here we have quick drawn zombies. These are kind of a little bit maybe slower to set up, but higher ceiling kind of decks that like to sit behind defensive walls and kind of maybe struggle against oppression and deck dev post board. Blackwings in general can punish it a lot with the piercing and the Shura and just being able to play really well into defense mode monsters. So it should be kind of obvious why I think Blackwings are good in those matchups. In terms of the matchups Blackwings are bad against, I'm also pretty sure about these. Fairies and Diva Hero are just insanely good versus any kind of aggro deck, I think. Fairies can just constantly float into DD Warrior Ladies, constantly get rid of all of the monster threats. In terms of Blackwing, doesn't even matter if they have Whirlwind up or some crazy opening, if they just can't maintain board presence against Fairies. And then the Honest and Orange Light, they just have so many ways of just dealing with every normal summon that Blackwing put out on the field. And then Diva Hero is kind of the same deal. Ab-Zero, Snowman Eater, insane versus Blackwings. Caius, very good against Blackwings. So these two decks just have a lot of threats that answer the Blackwing gameplay style really well. So that's pretty much all I've got to cover for Blackwing. I think it's a pretty clear-cut one. I think Diva Hero and Fairies are both amazing versus Blackwings. Zombies, a quick draw, a bit more weak to Blackwings. Alright, so next up we got Frogs, a deck that's gotten a lot more prevalent in recent months. I'm reasonably sure about these ones too. Let's just go through it. So first we have it beating Fairies and Vayu. These are decks that just kind of set a Raikou or a Battle Recruiter every turn and don't do much else, so they're otherwise pretty slow compared to these other decks. So getting a Monarch every turn is just completely devastating in these particular matchups. which is the main reason that I have them losing to frogs. Of course, fairies can drop Christia, which conceivably could win against frogs, but how the hell are you getting 4 fairies in the grave in the average game against frogs? And, Vayu can probably do something. I actually don't know. Maybe Vayu should be in the big circle here for losing to frogs, because I can't think of what the hell Vayu does. Like, Vayu probably should be even worse than fairies against frog, now that I really think about it, because, like, your guy that you summon is 2300, and the monarchs are so good against you, and the, like, oppression doesn't do anything post-board. I mean, you probably don't bring it in, I guess, but deck devs may be okay. You could maybe deck dev them, but I can't think of a lot that Vayu could honestly do. Maybe if you draw some crazy ceiling hand with Dad, but frogs are playing a lot more like Battle Fader and stuff now too, so this feels like it should just be impossible. These are like really extreme examples, honestly. Frogs should just crush these two decks. Zombies and Quick Draw, these are less extreme examples, I think. These are decks that have a mild advantage. Zombies used to be considered like the ultra pre for frogs thing, but as I mentioned, frogs started playing like Battle Fader and T-Roar and stuff, so zombies isn't nearly as good. Monarching the battle recruiters is pretty good, but like they can pop off and just like mess you up pretty bad. The Book of Life is still really good. Like just the ceiling plays that they can make are still pretty good. You're not always going to have like the clean monarch every turn answer, and like it's just a lot faster of a deck, like in general. Like the reason Vayu and fairies are bad is because they set monsters and because they're so much slower and they rely more on back row and stuff, whereas like the main zombie engine can just like still pop off and special summon a bunch. So I think decks like that are pretty good against frogs, considering they play no back rows. It's like, if you summon like 4 synchros or something against frogs with a crazy zombie hand, what the hell do they even do? Even if they drop Battle Fader, how do they survive next turn? With a typical frog hand, it seems kind of unlikely. And like I mentioned, like Book of Life's still insane. Like they can just get rid of all your Treeborns, especially post board if they have Book of Life plus one other thing. So I think zombies are pretty good. Quick Draw is like probably even better though, because like you don't even need to set monsters. You can just make a Drill Warrior and like pretty much win the game from that point. Honestly, what the hell do frogs do to Drill Warrior? Like just looping Dandy every turn. How do you ever win actually? So yeah, I think Quick Draw is pretty crazy versus frogs. Probably even better than zombies. But like I said, these are pretty moderate example. I think these like have a slight advantage against frogs, whereas frogs just like devastate Vayu and fairies. So yeah, that's the main breakdown for frogs. All right, now we're talking about zombies. It's occurred to me that the more we get into this, the more like redundancies we're gonna have and whatnot. So I guess the discussions should just get a little faster paced since we don't have to go through explaining every little thing. But as I mentioned before, zombies pretty good against frogs. I like struggled with thinking about what the other deck zombies are good against is, which is weird because I think zombies are a really good deck. Maybe in general, as a side note, I think evaluating matchups is not a great way at telling what the best deck is, to be honest. But yeah, I put Vayu here. I can't even remember why I did this. This must be one of the ones that I was just like had no clue and just wanted to fill in the bubble. Well, what's good if like I guess you have a lot of great ways of playing into Raikou, and like if you pop off, you probably win. I don't know. You're gonna have to wonder why the hell I put Vayu in that circle. But Blackwings, we already discussed that, and then fairies. Fairies are obviously crazy versus zombies because DD Warrior Lady, once again, just super good. Banishing all of the battle recruiters is extremely annoying. And then Christia is like a win button too. So an Orange Light interrupts like so many zombie plays that would otherwise like OTK you. So, I mean, yeah, fairies just have a lot of tools for dealing with zombies. I wouldn't hesitate to say they're probably the best deck against zombies. And most zombie players probably agree with that as well. So, all right, quickie, we got through that one. Out of all of these, I think Vayu Turbo has to be like the most perplexing one in terms of matchups. Like I just could not, I could not think. The only thing I was sure about is that it loses to frogs, right? Okay, we're 100% sure this deck loses to frogs. What else? Like Quick Draw? Why did I say it was losing to Quick Draw? I'm gonna have to like think about this for a moment. Okay, I guess Quick Draw just has like, again, doesn't really care about the Raikou hamster stuff. Has tons of like good monster removal. Caius and stuff's pretty good. I guess like if you can get Drill Warrior established, you probably just win, right? The only thing you're really losing to with Quick Draw is probably just Royal Oppression. So I feel like it's kind of an oppression or bust matchup for Vayu. And yeah, if you establish the oppression, you probably could win if they don't have an out, but that doesn't happen too often. So I think Quick Draw should reasonably be winning this one most of the time. In terms of beating fairies, the reason I said this is because like kind of like how Hamster Raikou just sucks against the decks on the right. Hamster Raikou is amazing against the decks on the left. So yeah, fairies and Diva Hero just do not have good ways of trading into that shit at all. Like Diva Hero can Caius it, I guess, but like it's like the 10th best Caius deck or something. I don't even know. And then like Ab Zero and like Snowman Eater and all that stuff pretty much just sucks against all the set guys. And in general, just a lot of the destruction effects send the Vayu stuff to the grave, and then you can just like make another Vayu guy. So I guess that's probably why I said this was a rough matchup for Diva Hero. And then fairies, yeah, you like Vayu just has an endless like line of removal for the battle recruiters and stuff. So yeah, makes sense. I guess I can kind of make sense of these now that I really think about them. But on the surface, it did not wasn't coming back to me. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable claims for Vayu's matchups here. Finally, at long last, we got another easy one here, which is fairies. I think I've already gone over all of the ones on the left and the right. I've actually just gone over all of these already. Yeah. So DD Warrior Lady just like dumpsters Blackwings and zombies, and the like Raikou hamster stuff and Vayu messes you up, and the Monarchs and Frogs messes you up. Yeah, that should about summarize it. That's why fairies loses to those on the right and wins to those on the left. Any questions? Diva Hero. All right, we're saying Diva Hero beats Blackwings. I already explained why, so yeah, go watch that part. Fairies, I think Diva Hero just has like an endless cavalcade of outs to Christia, or not to Christia, to Battle Recruiters. I mean, they do have a bajillion outs to Christia too, now that I think about it. Like, because the discard traps are just so insane. The discard traps in general are just crazy versus fairies too, but then there's also like Caius outing your recruiters, Snowman Eater outing your recruiters, which you don't really want to trade Herald into that either. And like summoning Ab-Zero, like there's no good way for them to get rid of that either. They can't draw Christie into that because that kind of sucks. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that Diva Hero can deal with fairies. Vayu, I forget why I said it lost to Vayu. Go watch that part. Quick Draw, you know what? I'm gonna explain this one in the next segment on Quick Draw. So yeah, Diva Hero. I've hardly explained anything about it. I was super lazy in this part. Whatever. Okay, this one was more of a mixed bag again in terms of how certain I was about it. Quick Draw, probably one of my favorite decks of the top meta decks in the format. Let's just look at it. So we said it lost to Blackwings, and I've already explained why, and that one seems kind of obvious, so we don't need to go over that. Fairies, that honestly seems tough, because like Quick Draw has a ton of removal for the recruiters. However, Christia and Orange Light just destroy you, just like eviscerate you. You can never summon Drill Warrior ever. So that could be a major issue, but like Caius and Raikou and Blaze Accelerator are really good, so it's like But then like Debris and Caius are really bad, and the Quick Draw is really bad. Caius can be good or bad depending on if they have Orange Light. I should mention. I don't know. I think I said it was both good and bad, like 10 seconds apart. So yeah. This one's tough. I gave the edge to fairies, and I can see why. And Christia is like a win button, and it's not like impossible to set up Christia against Quick Draw either, but it's not easy. Yeah, that one's a real thinker. I think giving Fairy the edge kind of makes sense, but there's a lot of ways for Quick Draw to play against Fairy. Not gonna lie. Frogs, I think I already mentioned if you summon Drill Warrior, you pretty much win. So yeah. Diva Hero. This one is like a matchup that I've never really understood, but it always just feels rough playing Diva Hero versus Quick Draw. It's like you just feel like you can't push and you get outgrinded and whatnot. I guess like you don't have a great way of dealing with the dandy token spam or the drill warrior looping or anything. You don't have like oppression or anything you could sideboard into either. So yeah, I think that's like a fair assessment of it. You just kind of get like stalled and grinded out and just end up playing quick draws, sort of long control game. So that's kind of why Diva Hero I think struggles. But that wraps up the very last decks matchups. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with anything in the comments section. Sure to give the video a like. Be sure to become a member if you're interested in any of the channel perks. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.